Hello, today I would like to go over a really fun activity that you can play with your students or utilize with your students who are alternately assessed when you're working on the Math Essential Element 3 and F 1 through 3, which is differentiating a fractional part from a whole. So the game is called Roll, Slide, and Cover. You can see here it's very similar to a bingo board. And I'm going to show you how I can utilize this in my virtual classroom using this board in either a PDF, we can use it in a Jamboard, and one other thing we can utilize is something called virtual dice. So I found this by simply typing in virtual dice into Google, right into the search bar, and this pops up when you're looking. And what I love about this is it has so many different options down here. You can have a die that has only 4 sides, 6 sides, 8 sides, etc., all the way up to 20. Another thing you can do is if you click on a die twice, then you can get 2 at once, right? And by clicking this little button down here, roll, you can roll your die, right? So I think that's really awesome. I really like that. Another thing I think is really cool is it has this total down here. So you can use this virtual dice for anything, right? If you wanted to incorporate this into adding, single numbers together, you can do that. If you had sums up to 10, sums up to 20, this might just be a really fun way to incorporate dice into a lesson, into any math lesson that you're doing. It turns it into a little bit of a game. They roll the numbers and they have to add them together. They can check themselves by looking at the total down here, right? So this dice is definitely used for the game I'm going to show you now, but this can be used for any game that requires dice that you can't have when you are in the virtual classroom. So a really fun feature. I really like that this popped up. It's super easy to use. Another thing you can do over here with this little plus button is you can determine what the total is, right? So automatically adds numbers to your roll, so you can just type in however many you want it to be, and that would be what the total would be, right? So another way to incorporate some different math features into that. Now, for our game, Roll, Slide, Cover, I'm going to show you can use it either in a Jamboard, which I do like utilizing because my students can go in and access it and edit it while I'm in there, so I can see in real time their participation. But, if you have students that you would rather do it for them and you can share your screen, you can absolutely do that if you're using a PDF, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go in here, we're going to get our virtual die, we're going to roll it, and we have 2/3, right? So now let's go to our PDF. We're going to check this out, and we are going to find the image that has 2/3 boxed in. And here we go. It's right here. It took me a little while to find it. Now, the way that you can go about blocking or covering it is by creating an image right over here. So you go up to your shapes, you click on whatever image you want. I clicked on a square. I'm going to size it down just a little bit to fit into my box. You can change the fill color to anything you'd want, right? If you want it, a light color, a dark color. I chose purple just because it stands out a little bit. So, and then you would go and you would cover it, right? So you can do that if you're in a PDF. You can go through, you can have all of your students take turns, go through, roll a die, identify where it is, and you can cover it. You can have them point on the screen, whatever works if you're using a PDF. Or if you're using a Jamboard, you would go in and very similarly, you can either create the square for them. So you'd go over here to the shape, right? You'd want to click on a square. There's different options for shapes. You click on the square, and then you would have your fill color. Make sure it's a color you can see, and then your square will pop up, right? So there you go. We can make it, a gray, make it yellow, whatever color you want, right? So then if we just had, we'll do it again, where we can roll, and we had 2/3. So let's roll again. I'm going to roll again because we don't want a mixed fraction. And now we have 3/6 or 1/2, right? So let's go in and check it out if we have our 3/6, which we actually have right up here, which is also 1/2. So you can go in and explain that, and then you can have your students cover it, right? So what you can do with this is if you wanted each of your students to have their own board, you can go right here, you can hit duplicate, and then you can have another board for them so that all your students can have their own board that they can go through and fill it out while you're working, right? So everyone can have their own board that they could fill out, and they can go through and see who fills up the board first, who gets 4 corners first, who gets a straight line across, whatever works. Now, another thing I'm going to show you is if this seems a little too much for your students, if there's too many boxes to kind of scan through and you don't think that they'll be able to do that, you can decrease the size of the board, right? You can just have 6. If you wanted only 4, you can do that. It's all very simple. And the way you would do that is by going into your PDF and then just taking a screenshot, right? So you'd go in, go to File, take Screenshot from the selection, and then you just slide it across to make it however big you wanted, right? So you can make it a little 4 board if that was more functional for your students, right? I had also made an option here so you can have a bunch of different options. You can embed them into your Jamboard if you'd like, so that all different students have different boards. They have different game boards that they can use. You can even utilize one that had 6 different boxes, and if your students are ready for something more, make it bigger. So you can size it up, you can size it down, you can scaffold it, whatever works for your students and their needs. You can have multiple game boards going on at one time. You can have your paraprofessionals supporting your students by placing the boxes over them. So a lot of different options, but a really fun way to play a game using fractions and also having some virtual die. I think it's really fun. I really like this feature of Google. I never even knew that they had it, but it's a pretty awesome thing that I'm definitely going to utilize in my classroom. And you can also take away the die if you click on it, right? So if you did want to, you can add it by clicking on it. If you want to take it away, you just click on that as well. All right? So I hope that you can use this game with your students. I hope you play it. I hope they have fun. I hope you have fun in, finding out fractions and learning about fractions in a game-based way.